Hello, my name is Temitope and I am the creative director for QA QA is a community that is passionate towards your learning and development. So on this channel, we upload videos from all our trainings and even other videos in the aspect of software testing and automation. Do well to subscribe to our channel. Now, what are you waiting for? Subscribe. Also watch our videos, like and share. Add your comment too. Thank you for watching. Subscribe now. I gave out the link. It's a build that was not released or that was upgraded. If you look at the link very well, you will see version 2 there. So it's hosted in a different environment to the one you are using as a normal Google account, right? So we said yesterday that softwares are constantly evolving, and also that is the same as what technology too. So because of this constant um, evolving process, we discovered that when you're developing your test case document too, you have to evolve with your test case development. There are new features. If there are new features that are added to your application, then you have to add new test case too for those new features. So you will keep updating, you will keep upgrading, you will keep having version 1 of your test case and version 2 and version 3 and so on. That is how you developed your test case document. Now, back to the application we were experimenting on. In case you have issues with using this link, please just open it incognito. You know what incognito is? Like this. So for the novice, like we said yesterday, is this the same link? Okay, let me copy again. It's having a different look and feel. Okay. So for those that are just upcoming in software testing, yeah, what we have been saying is that software testing is all about it's a process, it's a set of activities, okay, that you do on your software to check for bugs, to check for defects, to check for something that is not working as expected, right? Those are the process, and the process is one of the process is test case development. Yeah, I talked briefly about test plan, and I also want you to go and read up on it because this is a bootcamp. It's more of practicalizing what you have read up, right? Then that means that all we will be talking about right now is the hands-on, what you practically do in order to check that your software is working as expected. So here it is now. We have a software Google account. Create Google account. Create a Google account. That is the software we have here right now, and we want to test that this application is functional. It is working as expected. The expectation here is that you are able to create your account successfully, right? That is the expectation. But because normally if you are creating a test case document, you should have a set of maybe requirement or design somewhere that you can follow, right? That will help you, that will guide you in designing what your test case, because you don't know what to put in your test case. You don't know what functions the application is supposed to do. You don't know what the expected result is supposed to be. Now that there is a document provided or there is a design somewhere that you are looking at, then looking at it, it's supposed to be guiding you on how to write it. So we say that is another kind of what testing. But right now, for the focus of our bootcamp, we are working on exploratory, meaning that you have an application somewhere that will serve as a guide for you to design your what? Your test case document. So this application is a guide for us right now. We are exploring through it in order to design our test case document, right? Yeah. So yesterday we started with we've done this interface. I think something has changed in the look and feel of this. Okay, so we started with enter your first name, your last name, and then we clicked on next, if you recall. And we also said there are a lot of other things you can check for on this interface, but we were only focusing on first name and last name. I wanted you to do it as an assignment, focus on every other thing. See, there are a lot of other things here like um, language translation, CF, privacy themes, you know, learn more, dismiss, and so on, right? So those are the things you check for in your application. We have tested this part quickly. I will just move through it. We've also done this part where you select a month, you enter in a day. I mentioned something yesterday. I said days of the month, days of the month should not exceed 31. The maximum in a month is what, 31 days. So when you are testing this kind of things that has to do with maybe phone numbers that are supposed not to exceed beyond 11 digits, or country codes that looks like +23 or plus you know plus 244 and all of that. Those are the conditions that you look at. Those are things you check for when you are testing your application. So imagine me entering 32 here and saying my year is let's say 1987. Then I say gender. Okay, so can you see there is a validation already on this date of birth? All right. So there's a validation. Somebody will ask a question yesterday about difference between validation and verification. Now I sent a link yesterday. I don't know if any of us went through it. So verification in its sense is used for static testing. Why? Because when you are designing your test case and the application, and you are not running it through an application that is live, then you might be using the word verification. Why? Because you are dealing with some set of requirement in a document somewhere. There's a set of specification in a document somewhere, and so you are conducting a static test on it. But right now, what we are doing right now is dynamic testing, because this application is live and we are exploring through it, and the kind of test case we are designing is dynamic. So we have what our dynamic testing here. So we are using the word what, validate. So you see that date of birth here has been what, has been validated. You can enter more than 31, I'm very sure. As soon as you enter 32, then you can move to the next page. Please enter a valid date. Yeah, this is another thing. It's also validated against the months. All right, February in itself is not up to what, it's not up to 31 days. So if you enter 31, that's another check that is put in place. If you enter 31, so when you are designing your test case, I didn't mention this yesterday, we had to just flip through so that we could create more test cases yesterday. But um now we are reviewing this application entirely. So but then you are writing all the test cases yourself, right? So but then let's just review the application. We have February has how many days, 29 or 28 and all of that. So if you for this year, I think we had how many days this year, 29, right? Or was it 28? Okay, 29. So somehow it is also still going to correlate 28, 29 against the particular year of birth. So those are the things you should check for. You could look for somebody's year of birth and check for the February for that year. If February for that year is 28, try to input 29 and see if it's going to validate it, if it's going to bring out an error and say okay, enter a valid date. Those are the things that you can experiment with. So for this February 1987, it's either 28 or 29, right? So if I put 29, it still says oh, this is still not correct, right? Let's see what will be correct. Can you see? 29 in the real sense is also it's also valid, but not for that year, right? So those are the things you do or you check for. Choose your Gmail address. This is coming up as a suggestion. So right, so we didn't do this page yesterday. So but when you get to this page, there are a lot of, there are options to select. You can go with the suggestions, or you can select create your Gmail account. But as a tester, you have to test each of it one after the other. The first one you test is the suggestions. So you validate that when you select one of the suggestions, you can proceed to the next, right? Or that when you click on create your own Google account, you can then input your what? Your numbers or letters or periods. So this is at the acceptable requirement for the name part of your Gmail account, right? So create a Gmail address, meaning that you have to like enter Adeola Shim or something like that. Then that is letter. Then you can put number and say 2024, and then maybe and period. Okay, so dot at gmail.com, right? It can take it. Let's see if it will take it. Okay, sorry, the last character of username must be A to Z or 0 to 9. All right, the last, even though you can use dot, but I don't think it should be on the last. So that's, are you following? Okay, so let's see if I put dot, because they said a dot, right? So it still went through, right? So let me go back again. It says you can use letter, numbers, and period, right? So I initially put the period here. It didn't pass me through. Why? Because it is at this end here. It's probably saying the dot as a number and is asking for ASCII characters. See again. Yeah. So it's for ASCII letter, and it's saying that okay, whatever I'm putting here should be number or letter. All right, it shouldn't be dots on the last, in the last digit of your username, I mean of your Gmail account, right? So that is how you look at requirements. And by the time you are writing your test case, you are saying that letters, numbers, and dots, can be used to create the Gmail account, the Gmail address, right? So then you also specify the letters. You say A to Z, 0 to 9, and and so on. So we say, okay, so let's move on. I have this account here. Now I am on another page, which is like a different scenario. Talking about scenario yesterday, we said in a scenario you have a set of test cases, all right? And we decided to make our scenarios page by page, page after page. So every page represents a scenario. Now this scenario here is to do what? Is to create a strong password. So we have password creation as our scenario. Now if you have password creation as the scenario here, how then do you go about creating your password? So I'm very sure that there are specifications for creating password, letters, numbers, special characters, dots, and all of that. So I want to create my password. Then I say, um, um, let me say QA fit. Okay, QA fit is letters, right? Now let's look for number. QA fit 2024. All right. Now talking about special character, I can say at QA fit 2024 at. Okay, can you all hear me? To make our testing scenarios page by page. So we said this page is talking about um, password creation. So you can say your test scenario here is what? Password creation. And I was trying to create a strong password here, right? I said usually most password accept letters, numbers, and special characters. depending on which special character. So it has to be specified. But because we are exploring, we are going to experiment with whichever one we have. Then it's going to probably just validate and tell us that okay, you can only enter this special character, this letter, and this number. So for this password, I will say I said QA fit the other time. So QA fit, then I will add number and say 24, right? Then I can add special character and say at maybe at me, whatever. Then come here and the same thing, QA fit 24 at me. Okay, so what did I write? Okay, so it's the same thing, right? It actually went through. Now I will go back and say QA fit alone. QA fit. Use 8 characters or more for your password. So if I say QA fit stay me without numbers, QA fit say me, right? It also went through. So for password for Google, I think the only requirement here is that it should be up to 8 characters. It doesn't You don't need to have a capital letter or numbers or special characters and so on. Now we have recovery email. So in this actually just enter any email that exists, right? Any email that exists. So you can just put your personal email here and say next. So here you enter country code. This is country code which somehow got auto selected based on location. So if your location setting on your browser, if it is enabled, then it is going to be automatically selected here. But if it is not enabled, I think you will go through the list, you will select the location, then you will enter phone number, then you enter your mobile number, and then you move on to what? To next. So the phone number field is also validated, right? So these are all the things that you put in your test case. You say validate that, okay? That's the phone number field is validated against the country code. Then you move towards, I'm skipping it, and then next, right? Choose your setting. Which one is this? Express, one step, manual. I guess it's the setting for your Gmail, how you want your Gmail to appear. Okay, so I pick on next. Then choose whether to save. So all of this is you exploring the application and writing possible scenarios and test cases that you can test for this application. So you will go back home for the week and you will explore the entire application, and then you will give me a feedback on Friday. Send your assignments to my email address. My email address will be in the WhatsApp platform. All right. So yeah. Then another thing is, if you have any question for me before the end of our 1 hour, I think we still have some time. Then I can address your questions one after the other, right? Especially concerning this assignment. All right. So yeah, that is all for today, guys. But we tell you, it's your personal effort that is going to help you more for this bootcamp. Even if you have the expertise of if you have experts come to train you, to teach you and all of that, you still need to sit down on your own and do these things yourself. Yeah. Is that okay? Is that all right? Any questions for me, please? I think at this stage we should have questions.
Thank you, ma'am. I actually have a question, but I just
Okay.
hope let me just make it quick because of where I am. It's kind of noisy.
Okay.
Now, in our test case, there's a place for precondition.
Mm.
Now, when you were talking about the email address, probably accepting, um, no, not email address now. Sorry, let me be sure. Under create password,
Okay.
it can be a mixture of numbers, letters, and symbols.
Okay.
Now, you try testing each scenarios individually.
Mm.
Now, is it a lazy approach to have just included it as part of the precondition to say for you to have a strong password, the password must contain letters, so that instead of you going to now um, validate individually to say, okay, can I have a password without a letter? Can I have a password without a symbol? So is it fine to
Exactly.
just
You are very
okay?
right. In designing your test case document, you have to think about. Yesterday, I was talking about the pessimistic view to testing, meaning that you are not only checking the happy parts, the positive scenarios, you're also checking the negative scenarios. You are checking cases that are gray or that could be missed out, right? Now, talking about negative scenarios now, if assuming we know that the precondition for this scenario, especially the one you mentioned, that is the condition for writing the username or the name part of your Gmail account, like diary ola, that is the name part you want to give, right? If you know the condition for writing the name part is letters, number, and dots, like we saw the other time, right? Then you mentioned the precondition, which is the positive part, right? Then the negative part will be that you check that it takes just letters alone, all right? Or that you should not take only letters alone, or that it takes both letters and numbers, or in a different kind of format, maybe a dot um before the letters, and so on. All right, that is you checking it against the requirement that is placed there. And the reason you are checking that is to ensure that those test cases don't pass, because the moment they pass, it means that there is a defect somewhere in the design, right? And that is how you record and say, oh, this. But when we get to the aspect where we talk about defect and bugs, right, we will be explaining more about that. But the focus majorly of this training for this first class is to teach you how to write test cases, right? So moving on to that part, you said create your own Gmail account. So you see this condition is saying use letters, numbers, and periods. That is the precondition, right? Use letters, numbers, and periods. So if I assume that and I want to test this in the happy part, I will just enter what I entered the other time. I will do letters, then I'll put number, and then I will say period. Of course, period will not go at that end. I can put period here. In any way, I've used all of the three conditions here. If I do this, it says sorry, your username must be between. Okay, so another condition you check for, you see, you will not see all of this precondition at once. Why? Because it's not documented somewhere. You are exploring the application in order for you to get what you want to write. So now this thing is saying sorry, your username must be between 6 and 30 characters long. That is another precondition you should look out for when you are designing your test case document. Now, I have just few numbers here, so I can decide to make this. So with this now, I have more than 6 characters. So if I put next, it says the username is taken. Try another one. All right. So we know a lot of people use Gmail these days, and anyone's Gmail could be Aderonke. So how do I how do I maneuver this? Username is taken too. I can say okay, the fib is just nothing, it's nobody's name, it's just a set of words. Aha, so this one went through probably because I used a set of words that are not real. But of course, nobody is bearing are they fit rats. Okay, so now I have letters, I have number, I have dots. So it has fulfilled this criteria, which is like the happy part, right? Now talking about your negative, let me assume I just use Ade Fitrat, even though it is up to 6 characters, but there is no number and there is no period. So will it go through? The username is taken. Oh, apart from username, let's use something else. It's taken now because this next button moved me to another place. So somewhere in the memory of this application, it has recorded that this thing has been taken. Well, temporarily. So I will pick another one. They can right. Okay. Okay. So it's moved. All right, even without the number and the dots. All right, so the precondition here that you can actually use only letters. So you check for that you can actually use only letters. You check for that you can use letter, numbers, and period. Then you can also check for that you can use only letter and period, or that you check that then you check that you validate that number should not be at the end. Sorry, dots, period should not be at the end. The one we were testing the other time, let's see. This one should not go through. Okay, so this is a negative scenario. It's a negative scenario here by saying that even though it is part of the requirement that you use dots, but if the dot comes as the last before your at gmail.com, then it shouldn't pass it. This is a negative scenario that you can add to your test case. All right, so and as an edge case that I mentioned the other time, you can make use of this scenario where someone will just use three what's the name three characters or 2 characters, that is far less than the required numbers of character, right? It doesn't often happen, but what if it happens that someone wants to just create a Gmail with a, imagine, okay? So it's an edge case and you have to check for it, right? So those are does that answer your question? Talking about negative scenarios, you want to check scenarios against the requirement and ensure that they do not pass. All right, so if they pass, it means that it is against the requirement, and of course your result will not be as expected. The expectancy of anything you test is that it is as specified. All right, any other questions for me?
Okay, so you're saying that we can include the negative scenarios to the assignment you gave us.
Exactly.
Okay.
Is it okay for me to actually say something?
Okay.
Does that mean that the possibility of we completing the test case is diverse based on different angles in which we are looking at it from?
Sorry, can you come again? The possibility of
our test case will obviously be diverse based on the angle each and everybody is looking at it from.
exactly. It shouldn't be too diverse though, right? But
Okay.
what I'm expecting from you is that you are able to pick every little detail in this application. Every little detail. Like for example, the other time we tested and we passed through this particular page, we did not check for characters less than 6. That was because we didn't enter any character less than 6. right? So that, in terms of diverse, might be hit, but if you pay attention, all of you might eventually end up writing the same test cases, because the most important thing is that um, there is no bug in the application. The focus is that there is no bug, but when you are testing, your focus is where is the bug. Yeah, let me fish it out. And someone is trying to join. Okay. So if we just keep working with the happy part, oh, this is expected and it has happened, pass, bam. This is expected and it is the actual, bam. This is expected and it is the actual, bam. If you keep working with the happy part, it might be really difficult for you to pick out the bug in a system. All right. So, but since your focus is to spot the defects, then you have to keep thinking in the line of the negative, thinking in the line of the hedge scenarios, thinking in the line of the gray areas. These assignments will help you, will help develop your critical thinking and your attention to details. All right. So yeah, that's, and I want everyone to, because I really want to see what you come up with and how you structure your test cases, right? What you come up with and how you structure it. I really need to see it. That's the focus of this assignment. Once you get it well with test case development, trust me, it's a very big step in software testing, right? Any other
Sorry,
question
ma'am.
for me?
I hope mine is not too much, please. I hope
Okay.
mine is not too much. Now, you see, this looking at the negative, probably open to catch a box part. Now, we are actually exploring. We're actually not sure of. Okay, we just have an idea of this is what the flow is requiring us to do. Now, how do you document something like, let's say, I want to test to confirm that my phone number is actually validated. That means it accepts the 11-digit phone number. And how do I, if I go that route and it's as expected, so how do I validate, how do I document again? I want to check if the country code is not validated against the phone number. Do we just, because from what you told us yesterday, it looks like the flow is on one direction. So
No.
how do we document, how can we go and preempt our mind that, okay, I want to be sure that this thing will work. So how do we document it? There is a scenario. Look at, okay, thank you for sharing. Use that basic information. Let me just.
By the way, something was wrong here yesterday. The precondition, am I right? I think maybe it's the way I exported. Sorry. There were some test cases under preconditions. They were supposed to be under test case description. Did any one of you see that? When I exported out this Excel sheet yesterday and I was viewing it on my phone, I thought I saw some test case description under preconditions, but as I'm looking at it now, they are not there. Okay, you can continue with your question.
Okay, so what I'm saying now is, there's a place for gender.
Okay.
Let me use that date of birth for example. Standard is a standard thinking is that I'm using my own date of birth. Now, if I want to now go away from my date of birth, like the way you use for February, how do I imagine that I want to go and test for February? Like, how do I document it?
Okay. So we said you write test cases based on scenarios, right? So let me give you a literal explanation to how scenario look like. For example, the application I showed you yesterday, the Uber application, or let me say ordering ride application, right? You are in your house and you are about to order for a ride. Now, order for a ride is a scenario. All right. Let's assume order for a ride is a scenario. Under the order for ride, right? What do? you select your location, you input your location, you call a driver, and then you accept maybe a rider, all right, and then you start your journey. These are test cases under what? Order for a ride. And another scenario might be that arrive destination. So in arrive destination, it can also have like different test cases under it. A scenario is register. Another scenario is login. Register is saying that you are a new user and you want to enter some details before you can access the application. But a login user is already a member, has an account on the application, all right, and now wants to do what? Wants to log in with the account they have previously created. Now, in terms of date of birth that you mentioned, you want to validate that. You can start by saying month validation. So you validate that you validate what's the name? Validate months that 31 months with 31 days per so number so type of month, or 30 days against so months. When you say those months, then you can actually put those months inside curly braces or inside brackets, just to specify that this month has 30 days and the numbers fall between 1 to 31, and this month, so you can say with the exception of, you can say validate that all months of the year falls within 1 to 31 except, all right, except February this, or you say okay, validate that what's the name, that February for this year, whichever one that you select, only falls between 1 to 29 or 1 to 28. Only between 1 to 29 or 1 to 28. You can't do it on a year basis. You can only do it on a month and days of the month, or number of days in a month basis. I don't think you can do it based on year. You can only do it based on numbers. So we know that it is either 1 to 30 or 1 to 31, and then 1 to 28 or 1 to 29. 1 to 28 or 1 to 29 only for February, and then 1 to 30 or 1 to 31 for the other months. So think about it, how you will actually write that logically for your test case.
Thank you. Very answered.
All right, so rounding up, any other question?
Yeah, I think I do have a question. So, I think we've gotten to the page where we had to set up password and the like.
Yes.
So, I want to ask to write the test step, because we said we should also explore the rest of the pages and write our test cases. So, is our test cases still going to follow the pattern we've been using since yesterday? Open your browser, because I noticed that we kept including the next steps for each of those test scenarios. So I want to ask, is it going to continue like that too?
So
or will it change at any point?
So we mentioned that the attributes of a good test case. There were three things we mentioned, if you recall. We said reproducibility, independency, and what was the third point? So the ability for your test to be reproducible, is the reason why we keep adding all the previous steps before. The reason you keep adding that is because you want to check only one test case. This only one test case we want to check if it passes or fail. Let's assume what we are checking is this one, this number 7 that I highlighted here. So you want to check if just this one passes. The reason you are checking if it passes is not just to see if just that one element passes, because if you are checking just one element, what happens to input phone number and the ones before it? I think this is where your regression test comes in place. Yesterday I gave you an assignment. I said go read up on types of testing. Okay? And this is a perfect scenario to describe what regression testing is all about. Regression testing says that when a bug is found and it is fixed, there is a tendency for some features to have broken and for them to already be affected. And when they are affected, then you need to go back and run your test from end to end. That means you regress to the back and then you check each feature one after the other. All right? So your test step is actually very important, and in fact it will help you by the time you start automating your test. The reason you must have a standard test case document is so that, number one, it will be readable for any novice that comes on board to continue what you have tested or to work with you. They need to understand what it is that you've been working on, details. So it will give them more capability. And when you are testing too, and when you are automating too, you just need to copy and paste some of these things into some of the copy and paste section of your code. And of course, you don't need to start typing or retyping and start trying to understand what it is that you're supposed to do. So all you do is to copy and paste. I don't think it's something difficult. Copy, paste, add the next steps. Copy, paste, add the next steps, right? So yeah, that's what you will do. But you have to check that the step is what you follow for that particular test case. If you discover that some tests change, some steps change for some test cases yesterday. Let me see. There were some of it that changed, that I had to select month, input this 8, 9, 5, 3. Which one is this? But later you guys can proceed without imputing the last name. So this one has only 3 steps, but the one before it had 4 steps. So I think this is a perfect description of what I'm saying. So this one says you are not imputing the last name, you are stopping on number 3, right? But this one says that you can actually proceed when you are input the last name, right? So you also have to check the test case description of what you're actually testing. If a step is not included for that test case, you remove it. For you to get to this level, you do not need this last name. All right? What you are testing here is to remove the last name, to check that when you remove last name, then you can still proceed, meaning that you must not include last name in your test, in your steps, right? So these steps are still dependent on whatever the test case you are running is, whatever the description of your test case is, right? So yeah, so when you are copying the steps, you still have to check what are the steps it will take for me to perform this action. What are the steps it will take for me to perform this action, right? That's how you design your test case. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. But most middle QAs or senior QAs, most of them end up not writing test steps. The reason they end up not writing test steps is probably because they don't have the time, or that now they understand what it takes to write a test case document and they probably don't need this step for them to execute their test, right? So they just ignore it, but it's not the normal standard. It's not the normal standard to trash out test steps. It is important for every test you carry out. Yeah, so that is what we have for today. Thank you for joining, and please turn in your assignment latest by Friday. If you finish before Friday, you can also turn it in.
So,
But
Abiola, I have a minor question.
okay.
Okay, so I was going to find out if it's also a standard for us to complete all of our test cases with the final response of a test status. So let's say expected result is same as actual result. So is it compulsory that we must indicate this test status?
Okay, so the test status is saying fail, pass. Actually, we have more statuses. There is fail, there is pass, there is blocked, there is closed, there is, in fact, there are a lot of statuses. But the popular ones are pass, fail, blocked. Now, um, it is important that you indicate what the status of a test is. That will enable you, when you come back to maybe to retest some other things, to actually check that you have already tested this and it has passed. And if you have indicated anything different from pass, then it's important that you had a comment. Usually there is a comment section. If you're in a company where they don't use Excel and they use maybe test tray or an application, most of the time there are comments section there where you had the comments to whatever has happened. If it is pass, you might not really need comment, but when it is different from pass, if it is fail or blocked or whatever, you have to add the reason why it failed. All right, and the feature that failed. You just write the reason and link it up to your bug tracker. There's something called bug tracking. This is to track or to check the status of bugs on an application. So if you have failed this particular number, this particular test case, if it has actually failed and you have added your comment that it failed, then we want to see where it failed and how it failed, and if it has been handled. Then you link it up, and then someone somewhere clicks on it, and then they are on the bug tracking section. It can actually be a Google sheet too, maybe another sheet here. So what a test suite comprises of is test cases, bug tracking, test data, and any other artifact, we call it artifact, any other information we need about the status or about the test status of an application. That's what a test suite comprises of. It's like a whole budget, right? So when you say design a test suite, so if anybody asks you to design a test suite, it means they're asking you to not just write your test cases, but also include your bug tracking, to include the environment, the summary, like the status and the result of the test, and then maybe any other information like the test environment, like screenshots and all of that. That's what. And then maybe the reporting, some reports these days are not documents. They are in those days we use documents, PDF, to write test reports. It has improved now. People just use graphs, representational graphs, to highlight results, test results, and say, okay, this percentage failed, this passed, and all of that. But in the real sense of it, when you are writing your test report in some other organizations, especially banks or telecoms that require heavyweight lifting, most of the time they always just write it. They will export all the tests that they've conducted on that application. They will export it and put it inside the report, and then they will show the ones that passed and the ones that failed, and the bugs that happened. The bugs that were reported during that particular phase, that particular test cycle, and then they will then report and say, okay, the test closure, it was closed so and all of that. So some do that, and some these days they make use of Jira. I don't know if you have heard of Jira. JIRA, a product management tool for bug tracking, for a lot of things, multifunctional. So a lot of people use Jira too, to for their test closure, for release note, for test planning, for bug tracking, everything just in one place, right? So, but now the easiest thing to use to teach us here is Excel. All right. So what you are looking at here is not a full test suite, it's just a test case document, because it does not have any other information other than your test case that is here, right? So every test case that you write and you have executed means that you have actually tested it. You have not only written it here as we have written it, but you have actually experimented, you have actually tested the application itself. Then you put the status and say pass or fail. You have to report the status of it. And if it is block, I was talking about blockers yesterday. Blockers means that when a test case is blocked, it means that is affecting some other test cases somewhere. All right. So you put blocked, and you add whatever you can add there. That is a major blocker. Then there is also not applicable. Sometimes you design a test case and the feature was initially there, but later when they are about to release the application, and they say, oh, this feature we have removed it because we won't have enough time to develop it, or that because we are having a major challenge with integration, so we are no longer using it. So then you have to come back to your test case and say, oh, this is not applicable for the next sprint, or for the next is going to the next sprint, or it is going to the next release. All right. So you have to add the status of that particular test you have executed. You have to add it there, right? So yeah, that is how you continuously your test case or your test suite continuously evolve over time as you test an application. All right. So yeah, that is it. Any other question? Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
So if you are just starting, like I said, I will send you a link on WhatsApp where you can read up on software testing from beginning to the end. Then you can also go on our YouTube channel to check previous videos of our trainings. We did some trainings last year for manual testing, for automation, and all of that. All of them are on our channel, so you can go there to read up, all right, on what you think you might have left out. In case all of this is looking like big grammar, it is not big grammar. You just need to like read up on it in order to like to level up for this bootcamp. All right. Yeah. That is all. We are going to have one more project. This is not the only thing you're working on for this bootcamp. There's another one, yeah, that you'll be doing that has to do with UI testing and API testing. What you have done here this week is exploratory testing. But for the rest of the bootcamp, you will be doing UI testing and API testing. So prepare, read up on different types of software testing, like I said yesterday, and please submit your assignment on it in latest by Friday. All right. Yeah, thank you so much for joining, and